This was, without a doubt, the hardest choice of his life. His wife was surrounded by a horde of zombies. If he dared to rescue her, he would almost certainly lose his own life. The man hesitated for 3 agonizing seconds, then chose to scramble out the window and run. His wife's screams echoed behind him, but he didn't dare look back, his mind was utterly blank. Faced with the encroaching horde, only the instinct to flee remained. Fortunately, his friend had a speedboat waiting on the riverbank. Don leaped into the boat, but his comrade wasn't so lucky. In this situation, falling into the water meant no hope of climbing back out. Don immediately started the boat, gritting his teeth as he shoved his friend into the water. Looking back at the house where they had lived for years, the man's heart was filled with bitterness. This virus had arrived so abruptly. Initially, he and his wife, along with a few others, had sought refuge at a neighbor's house, but waves of infected individuals had relentlessly stormed their last sanctuary. The virus was rumored to have originated from a lab, spreading with terrifying speed. It took only a few dozen seconds for an infected person to mutate. By the time the military intervened, it was too late. In just 28 days, the entire United Kingdom was annihilated by the zombie virus. Fortunately, 5 weeks later, the infected began to starve to death. 18 weeks after that, the government declared the country free of the infected. 28 weeks later, post-disaster reconstruction began. The first large-scale military contingent entered London. After confirming no viral threat, they established a safe zone and gradually began bringing survivors back. A pair of sisters disembarked a plane, their hearts heavy. They had miraculously escaped the disaster by being on vacation abroad. But upon their return 28 weeks later, their beautiful homeland was gone. The streets were littered with uncollected bodies, and soldiers were busy everywhere. Surprisingly, the sisters' father was Don, the man who had previously fled on his own. He was now living quite comfortably, serving as a mid-level administrator within the safe zone. Stepping into their new apartment, which was several times more luxurious than their previous home, the two sisters seemed excited. But when they asked about their mother's condition, Don's expression turned grim. He didn't have the courage to tell the truth, instead lying that he had witnessed their mother being bitten to death by zombies and was powerless to do anything but run to the quarantine zone himself. Hearing their father's heartfelt words, the sisters didn't think much of it. However, that evening, the younger brother dreamt of their tragic mother. The older sister also regretted that they hadn't even kept a single photo of their mother. So, the next day, the two secretly sneaked away from Don, quietly crossed the safe zone, and decided to return to their old house to retrieve some photos. Unfortunately, their rule-breaking actions were spotted by a sniper on a rooftop. Entering the deserted street, the sisters were initially excited to have the entire place to themselves. But when they saw the horrific state of the corpses, the older sister immediately lost her enthusiasm. She found a motorbike, grabbed her brother, and sped toward their old house. Relying on vague memories, the two found the key hidden by the door. Upon entering the house, they immediately took down their mother's photos. The older sister wanted to pack more belongings to take with them. The younger brother, with time to spare, went upstairs on his own. Opening a door, he discovered that someone seemed to be living there. A blurry figure briefly appeared in the mirror. The younger brother approached for a closer look and, to his shock, it was their mother, who was supposed to be dead. He was embraced tightly, and the joy in his heart was replaced by fear. He struggled free, turned, and ran downstairs. Just then, the fully armed military arrived. Unsurprisingly, the mother and 2 children were taken to a medical center for quarantine. Don's wife received special care. No one could imagine how she had survived 28 weeks alone. The female doctor found a bite mark on her arm, and a blood test confirmed that Don's wife was infected with the zombie virus. As for why she hadn't mutated, it was possibly due to her body naturally producing immune antibodies. The female doctor quickly recognized her immense value. Perhaps a vaccine could be developed from her. However, the black officer saw only a potential threat from Don's wife, as her saliva and blood still carried the zombie virus. Just as the officer was preparing to have her eliminated, Don also heard from the soldiers that his wife was alive. The 2 children were increasingly alienated from their deceitful father, and Don was torn. After some hesitation, he used his position to quietly go to the quarantine room where his wife was being held. Don's eyes were filled with remorse, and he continuously apologized. Surprisingly, his wife didn't hesitate to forgive him. Don, moved, kissed her lips. However, this very kiss plunged the human world into a great catastrophe once more. Don quickly realized the virus was spreading rapidly through his body. He didn't have immunity like his wife. In less than a minute, Don had completely transformed into a zombie, and his wife became his first victim. Immediately after, he ran into the basement, attacking others. By the time the military reacted, Don had disappeared. The number of zombies appearing in the medical center grew. Seeing the situation about to spiral out of control, the military immediately activated emergency protocols. They cordoned off the street area containing the medical center. All survivors were isolated, but Don, now mutated, had somehow sneaked into the quarantine zone. People were terrified and panicked, unwilling to become sacrifices, so they frantically broke down the quarantine doors. Initially, the soldiers at the entrance only shot down those who had mutated, but as the number of infected grew, the commanding officer issued a cruel order to indiscriminately attack the surging crowd. In an instant, all the soldiers opened fire simultaneously, the chaotic gunfire mingling with screams echoing through the night sky. In the medical center's isolation ward, the female doctor arbitrarily rescued the two sisters because, inheriting their mother's genes, they very likely carried virus antibodies. This could be the key to vaccine research. However, the situation was too chaotic at that moment. The female doctor led the two sisters to hide in a warehouse. On the roof, there was a sniper named Doyle. He had fired all the bullets in his gun, but the worry on his face grew clearer. He felt he had killed too many people today. After a few seconds of hesitation, Doyle deliberately turned off his radio, took a detour, and coincidentally walked into the warehouse. There, he met many survivors, including the female doctor and the two potentially immune sisters. Doyle felt this was a chance for redemption given to him by God. Therefore, he declared on the spot that he would lead everyone to escape. But they had barely set out when Doyle received a reminder from his comrade, Flynn. Due to the virus being out of control, the military would perform a carpet bombing of the entire lockdown area in 4 minutes. However, they had cleared a safe zone as a rendezvous point. Doyle knew that was their only hope of escape. The other survivors also heard the radio message. All of them desperately moved toward the safe point. But they didn't know there was a sniper guarding nearby. Some survivors were unexpectedly shot down without warning. Doyle led everyone to hide behind a wall. Staying put and wasting time like this would only lead to death. To confirm the sniper's position, he told a tall, thin man to go out and draw fire. However, the man fearfully shook his head wildly, his cowardly demeanor something even the younger brother couldn't stand. The boy rushed out onto the street, and by running in a zigzag pattern, he managed to dodge several bullets. Doyle seized the opportunity to directly take down the sniper who had revealed his position. No one dared to hesitate for a moment, quickly climbing over the fence. Just then, they saw the bombing aircraft roaring overhead. Fortunately, Doyle's group had managed to get into the underground tunnel beneath the river. However, the survivors in the lockdown zone were not so lucky. As each napalm bomb fell, fierce flames erupted, engulfing a large area. The commanding officer fell silent for a long time. He knew that such an attack couldn't completely eliminate the zombies, and another biological attack would be needed. Meanwhile, Doyle's group, having just escaped the bombing, didn't know that a large number of zombies were quickly gathering. After a night of struggle, everyone finally reached the prearranged rendezvous point. While waiting for military rescue, the female doctor quietly told Doyle that the two sisters were very important. They very likely carried virus antibodies. Even if all of them died, the sisters must not be harmed. Doyle nodded in agreement. Immediately after, he quickly stood up. He received news from his comrade, Flynn, that the rescue helicopter was about to land. But before everyone could rejoice, they saw a massive tide of zombies approaching. The pilot lowered the helicopter, stunned by the sheer number of people. He emphasized that he would only take Doyle alone. The tall, thin, timid man caused trouble once more. He directly clung to the helicopter's skids, trying to pull himself up. The pilot, who was also short-tempered, deliberately maneuvered the helicopter into the horde of zombies. The high-speed rotating blades also helped eliminate a large number of zombies. Doyle seized the opportunity to lead the two children and a few others in a brave breakthrough. Amidst the fighting, he didn't forget to arrange the next rendezvous point with the pilot. Everyone fought as they retreated, stumbling back into the city. But unexpectedly, the military, in order to eliminate the remaining zombies, had begun to release biological weapons into the city. Everyone narrowly avoided running straight into the toxic gas. Now, there was no time to run, they could only hide inside a car parked by the road. The pursuing zombies quickly collapsed in the toxic gas. Doyle was frustrated to find that the car wouldn't start. Through the hazy mist, the figures of sweeping soldiers appeared. Everyone knew that if they were spotted, they would surely be considered zombies and be eliminated together. Doyle said something to the female doctor, then decisively got out of the car, intending to use his strength to help start it. With the female doctor's coordination, the car successfully roared to life. However, at that moment, Doyle was spotted by the soldiers and burned to death. The female doctor didn't dare to hesitate for a second. She drove the car at top speed out of the toxic gas zone. But the military wasn't going to let them off. A helicopter flew over, targeting everyone and firing wildly. If this continued, they would surely die. In desperation, the female doctor floored the accelerator, driving into a subway station, thereby escaping the pursuit of the combat helicopter. Everyone planned to go through the tunnel to reach Pilot Flynn's pickup point. Unfortunately, the power was out, and it was pitch black all around. Luckily, Doyle's rifle had night vision. The female doctor guided the two sisters to grope their way forward. But after only a few steps, everyone stumbled and rolled down an escalator. The female doctor had just found the older sister when she turned around and was suddenly attacked by a zombie. The older sister lay on the ground, not daring to move, listening as the female doctor was killed by the zombie. Only when the zombie had moved away did the girl run to pick up the rifle on the ground. Meanwhile, the younger brother was anxiously searching for his sister. Suddenly, a familiar figure appeared in front of him. Looking closely, it was none other than their mutated father, Don. While the younger brother was still stunned, Don lunged and knocked him to the ground. This scene was precisely witnessed by the older sister who had just arrived. She decisively pulled the trigger, firing several shots to eliminate her zombified father. Unfortunately, the younger brother had been bitten by a zombie. He worried that he would harm his sister, so he decided to run to a deserted place to await mutation. But several minutes passed, and his body showed no signs of mutation. It seemed he had indeed inherited his mother's immunity. The older sister was naturally overjoyed and took her brother to the stadium where Doyle had arranged to meet his comrade, Flynn. The pilot had been waiting there for a long time. Seeing that his good friend Doyle hadn't arrived, he understood. He waved to signal the two sisters to board the helicopter, but Flynn didn't know that the younger brother was now a virus carrier. The helicopter flew over the skies of England, heading straight for France. At the end of the film, a helicopter crashed onto French territory. A large number of zombies roared and rushed towards the symbol of Paris, the Eiffel Tower. This concludes the entire plot of the movie 28 weeks later. This open ending clearly foreshadowed the destruction of the world. Perhaps the director at the time didn't imagine that almost 20 years later, they would film another installment, 28 years later. This sequel is now in theaters, but audience reactions have been mixed. Some believe 28 years later is the best part of the series, but others argue that this third installment doesn't fully respect the original intent of the first two parts. For those of you who have seen it, please leave your thoughts below to discuss. Thank you for watching our video. Goodbye for now.